Well, hello again. My name is Jay Lepore and I am with ServerMatter and CompuMatter. The purpose for this video is to stop Linux from renaming your network connections. So I've had a problem lately where I've got a client server. Upon reboot, EN01 as a for instance became EN02. Or in another instance became ETH1 or ETH0. It's rather random in its nature, but it clearly was the case. It renamed them on the fly, and the network settings that I've had, in my case in NetPlan or Network Manager or whatever it may be, was depending on that original naming convention, and so the networking just broke, and they were out of business. So it has to be stopped. It's really a requirement to prevent that sort of dynamic renaming at boot time. And there's fortunately a way to do that that's built into Linux. It's just a matter of knowing how, and I'm going to show you how right now. Okay, on the screen behind me, I have run ipadd or ifconfig, same results, and it shows us our interfaces. I am only interested in EN01 and EN02. Those are my only hardwired Ethernet adapters. The bridge is in fact built on one of those interfaces, so that's why that interface needs to be solid in its naming convention. I'll show you I'm using NetPlan. Okay, in NetPlan you can see we create a bridge right here. We built it on EN01, so if EN01 changes its name, it's over. So that has to be accurate. Let's talk about making that happen. In the UDEV, there's every Linux operating system has an etc UDEV rules D folder, and in that rules D folder you can put rules applicable to your hardware device. It goes beyond networks, although that's all I'm concerned about, and frankly I don't know enough about it to school you in that area, but I know for sure we can control our network interface names here. So I've gone ahead and created one called 99 SM persistent net naming rules. Now 99 is higher than 0, 1, 2, or 3, so the higher the number, the more precedence you're going to have. It's going to overwrite any other rules previous to that that might also address the same interface. So within that file, you see we've identified the MAC address, and we've identified the physical, the naming convention that we want to provide. Now I could provide any other name. I could name it, you know, server 1 or network 1 and network 2 or whatever, and that's how it would show up in the operating system from the boot point forward. Completely valid, but I don't want to confuse other server administrators who might have a need to look at this system, so I'm going to stay with what has originally been named and just make sure I keep it that name by saying anything that comes up with this MAC address, that's the name it gets. Anything that comes up with this MAC address, that's the name it gets, and that happens during boot, so everything's going to respond to it that way. If you do an ifconfig rather, forward, it'll show it that way. So now let's talk about the bash script. You could do that manually, but I've got a bash script here. Alright, let's run down this bash script, setnet rules. Won't try to cover it in too much detail because it'll take forever, but I'm going to give you the gist of it. All interface names, we scout to see what interfaces are out there. We do not want to look at LOs or tunnels or USB interfaces or bridges, just the hard Ethernet plugs, your ETH0, your EN01, 2, ETH0, 1, 2, that kind of stuff. And ENSP, whatever, there's a lot of variations on the theme, but it'll get them. It just won't get those. And it puts them into a string called that. We're then going to, depending on whether you've got a prefix, you know, by default the script is going to use ETH0 or EN, whatever Linux is already using, and we're just going to put that in the UDEV file. But you might have a situation where you prefer to have your own naming convention. And so instead of being called ENO, it's going to be called, in my case, SMNet 01, and so on. And that's fine, you can do that. Frankly, the reason I'm going to do that in this case is because I've been told about a race condition where virtual machine networking might end up with the old naming convention if it loads before this loads. So this will circumvent that, I'm told. So we're going to go ahead and put a fixed name in there. You'll see how that works in just a second, but you don't have to do that. When it's all said and done, we're going to create a new rules file right there, and it's set for UDEV rules D and whatever rules name you want. And as mentioned earlier, the 99 is going to give you the best privilege. You're going to be able to overwrite anything else that came before it, and then you can call it whatever you want after that. I do think it needs to end in rules. Here is where we create the actual file, and then we populate it with a few comments, and then populate it with the actual interface information, whatever naming convention we used above. Now this here is going to be completely optional. Some of you are not going to use that, and you need to just comment that out. That is, if you're using NetPlan, which I am, it's going to go into the NetPlan YAML file, and it's going to find any of the old names and change them to the new names. Now, if the old names are the same as the new names, nothing would change, but that's what does that. Now, if you have a different network file instead of the NetPlan and you want to make the same change there, well, you can just change this to whatever the path is to your network file name, and it'll make that change for you, so you don't have to do it manually. And then when it's all said and done, it's going to echo the results so you can see what happened. Okay, and in my case, I'll go ahead and clear that. Set net rules, there we are. Okay, I'll run that, and you know, it reflects here the old interface name was SMNet 0 and the new one's SMNet 0, because I've run this before, I've rebooted the system, so there's nothing to change there. But it does tell you this is what is being put in the rules file, and then it will give you a printout to the screen of your network file so you can see whatever changes are made in there. So that's it. That's how the bash file works, and that's the work that it does. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you like what you've seen, please click the like button, and if you have any interest in subscribing, if you're so inclined, please do, and you'll be the first to know when scripts or things like this come up. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.